Meow. Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the East Anglia witch hunts for two main reasons. The first one is I wrote my dissertation on it and I would love to do a video on it because I have a great interest in it. And second, I do think it's something that isn't really spoken about much for good reason. It was a while ago, but it was one of the most remarkable parts of the European witch craze, and it shows how learning through times of great suffering and anxiety and stress can lead to, fatal persecution of members of the community. And we're taking a deep dive into that and basically briefly learning a little bit about it from the knowledge that I have. With the dissertation that I made, I created a few maps and I'm going to talk about those as well to show where the witchfinders travelled and how they compared to William Dalzin's Iconoclasm, which occurred a few years before. And my dissertation was really talking about how the witchfinders, if they were influenced at all by William Dalzin, whether William Dalzin was a direct influence, or if it shows that these places that were visited by both, for example, were more susceptible to these radical ideas of tearing down idols in churches to the killing of mostly women. Even though this did happen a while ago, it does still occur to this day, the idea of witch hunts in places such as in some places in Africa, which I know for most of us will be, we can't imagine how or why. But it just shows that even though this does seem very distant, it happened locally, for myself anyway, and anyone else around Essex, it's still happening to this day. So just a brief description of what was going on during the time of the East Anglia witch hunts. England was in its civil war, one of the most important and influential parts of English history, as well as British history in general, where the unique conditions of hardened social and cultural change caused these horrific events to escalate as they did. And one of the reasons the witchcraft came through at this time is heavily linked to the Puritan Faith, which rose dramatically during the period of the English Civil War. With regards to the three men who led the campaigns that we're speaking about today, you've got William Dalzin,
beautiful human being,
who led the Iconoclasm, and then the witch finding and the witch hunts in East Anglia, which were led by Matthew Hopkins and John Stern. Without going too much into the detail of their backstory, they all had similar pasts. They were middling yeomen. They were from a middle class-ish background, and they were also from, a lot of them, from religious backgrounds, with either fathers who were serving in the church or heavily involved in the church. So, and William Dalzin, just briefly touching on William Dalzin's Iconoclasm, basically went to the churches that were in East Anglia and removed any superstitious idols from those churches, such as church windows. They got smashed in, any expensive crucifixes, anything were removed, because the Puritans believed that they were not a true reflection on the faith and of God, and were basically false idols. What we're going to be focusing on today is the more extreme witch hunts that Matthew Hopkins and John Stern, and they were extreme because they basically tortured women into confessing they were witches through sleep deprivation and various other torture methods, but sleep deprivation, as well as keeping food and that away, was their most prominent method. And here I'm just going to show on the map how wide these campaigns went through and how far they were. They went throughout the whole of East Anglia. There are through a few hot spots. As you can see, the witchfinders seem to concentrate more on Suffolk as well as Norfolk and some bits of Essex like Colchester. Whereas if you've been to Colchester, there is the Colchester Castle. They do have an exhibit of Matthew Hopkins torturing a witch through sleep deprivation. And while speaking about that, a lot of these women who were accused of being witches were often just accused by a member of the community, and there wasn't really much to do with evidence back then. It was all to do with the fact that if you withstand the torture and you don't confess, then you're not a witch, or you are not guilty of the crime, which was huge throughout the whole of Europe during this period. But with regards to the maps, I'm going to leave them a link in the description as well, so you can have a read through and you can see how extensive they were if you are interested in that kind of thing. But it just illustrates how big the campaign was, how often they crossed over. Matthew Hopkins and John Stern were working together at the time. We did go their separate ways after this location here. So yeah, if you're interested in more of the campaigns with regards to John Stern and Matthew Hopkins, or even William Dalzin, I do suggest you read up on it. I'm going to leave a couple of books that I highly recommend. The one by Malcolm Gaskill is probably the most useful in finding about the witch finders in East Anglia, called Witch Finders, funny enough. And William Dalzin's The Journal of William Dalzin will also be in the description as well. If you're interested in any of those, then do read the books following below. I may do another follow-up video on that to discuss that further. This was more just having a look through the maps and showcasing the maps on screen. So witchcraft in East Anglia, what did it look like? It looked like basically a group of people were heavily persecuted, who varied in age, not in gender. A lot of them were, if not all of them, were women in Britain. Germany had the most witch hunts over a period of time, but this brief period through the campaigns of Matthew Hopkins and John Stern was the most intense in Europe during this period. Witches were thought to be able to cast spells and magic, much similar to the ideas of what you may have on witches now, that would stop weather from creating successful crops, which people relied on for their food. It could lead to illnesses that could kill. A lot of the time they were what they call cunning women, and cunning women were people who could cure through the use of herbs and various things. A lot of the accused women who were cunning women as well were widows, people who obviously didn't have a partner anymore, which during the English Civil War, as you can imagine, was more common than other times in history. And basically what they would do, they would meet up in sabbats where they would basically sleep with the devil and do other nefarious acts, which were obviously seen as against the church but seen as supernatural and dangerous to the community. Matthew Hopkins claims to have seen one himself when he was first moved into witchcraft outside his house, this whole idea of a sabbat, and through that witnessing it became an expert on witchcraft and was then licensed to go around and legally torture and get women to be executed on the belief that they are witches. There is the argument of whether or not Matthew Hopkins claimed to just believe in witchcraft for other nefarious means, be that economical or not. I'm on the side that I believe Matthew Hopkins did believe in witches, as well as John Stern, that is. They both believed in witches, and they generally thought they were doing a service that was necessary for their community. There's plenty of places you can read about witchcraft. There's the Witchfinder General, where Vincent Price plays Matthew Hopkins, which is arguably one of the reasons why Matthew Hopkins is so well known about in these counties and not as much John Stern, even though if you have a look at the map you can see that John Stern visited as much, if not more, than Matthew Hopkins did, and therefore should be considered as prominent, but didn't have so much of a big role in this film that came out, I believe, in the 60s, maybe the 70s, around that period. So why did these witch hunts occur? A lot of the time people were angry and sad, and a lot of people suffered a great amount of stress during the Civil War during this time, and this meant that a lot of people turned to an area they can fix a problem, and a lot of the people wanted a reason for why they were going through so much torment that was caused by the Civil War. A lot of resources were being used for the Civil War. A lot of obviously men were dying, which caused hardship on families as they were the main breadwinners during the time. And when they hear someone say, oh, it's because these witches are causing all these problems by casting spells, people wanted to solve that problem, and the only way to solve it is to purge the witches out of the local communities. If you are from East Anglia, it would be great if you could see if you were visited by witches by having a quick look at my map. I try to section out each position there with a bit more information as to who visited the area, whether it was Matthew Hopkins or John Stern, or even if William Dalzin visited there. A lot of places such as Manningtree, that were most prominent during the witch hunts, still have expeditions and talks about the witch hunts there, which I really am looking forward to going on. And if this sounds of interest to you, if you are doing a project on witch finders at university, or even just for your own leisure. And as I said before, I will leave a map in the description. But apart from that, it was just a quick video about the brief outline of witches in Essex and witches in East Anglia. I will do a bit more of a deep dive, I think, in a future video. It depends how well you guys receive this. If you do have your own experience with learning about witchcraft and witches in East Anglia, then do drop us a message. I do understand as well witchcraft was big in America, such as the Salem witch trials. I'd love to learn more about that. So if you, for example, know any documentaries or any books that would be a great brief insight into that before going more in depth, then please do leave those comments there telling me of those. But apart from that, thank you for watching the video. I hope you found it enjoyable and it gave you something to think about. Please do just subscribe, do like. If you want to be notified about similar videos such as this or one of the others that I've done recently, then do hit the bell as well, as it will notify you about when I upload. But apart from that, thank you for watching the video. Okay, take care.